So hard. Okay. Zoom out of that. Okay. All right, guys. Looks like we're live. Good evening, everyone. Eccentric Artists is really happy to host our 8th edition of Featured Artist Q&A. My name is Nadine Atividad, and I'll be your host for tonight. If this is your first time joining us, here's a little breakdown of tonight's live stream. All right, guys. Looks like we're live. Good evening, everyone. Eccentric Artists is really happy to host our 8th edition of Featured Artist Q&A. My name is Nadine. Sorry, I have no idea what that was. Okay. I think there was some weird backlog. Okay, so for the first 45 minutes, I'm going to be asking our featured artists a variety of questions. Then we're going to be transitioning over to audience questions. So if you have a question you'd like to ask our guests, feel free to enter them in the chat at any time, and our team behind the scenes is going to be sure to save them for later. Okay, so without further ado, let's introduce our guests tonight. First off, we have Lex Guelas. She's a Filipino-American film editor and second assistant editor based in South London. She received her BA in film production from UNLV in her hometown of Vegas and received her MA in film editing from Goldsmiths University of London. Lex associate produced and edited the short experimental thriller film Once Familiar, which recently finished a successful international film festival circuit. She's currently editing the short film Nell and Pauline, adapted from a conversation in 1963 between Nell Dunn and pop artist Pauline Bodie. Alongside her work as a burgeoning second assistant editor for HETV Productions in the UK, she has a few more short films up her sleeve for 2022. Yay! Okay. Next up, we have Sonia Barcelona. Sonia Barcelona is both a musician and photographer, named Best of Las Vegas by the Las Vegas Weekly and Desert Companion. She is open for Imogene Heap, Japanese Breakfast, Sales, Deep Valley, and Pearl Charles. She's been featured on Vice TV, Fox 5, and ABC networks. She cites her upbringing as her main influence. Born in Guam, half Indian and half Filipino, she was raised by her Filipino mother and Mexican stepfather in North Las Vegas. It wasn't until after graduating college that she discovered she had any musical talent, and after a few years of performing at open mics, she took a leap of faith and quit her job to become a full-time musician and photographer. Her 2019 debut album, Bitter Melon, touches on her perspective as an Asian woman in America, bringing a new and bigger sound reflective of her 90s grunge rock influences. As an independent musician, all music is written by Sonia and produced under her direction. Hey, Sonia. So, on behalf of Eccentric Artists, we'd like to once again thank all of you for being here today. I'd also like to thank our badass tech producer, Tiffany Rose Ignacio, and our social media fiend who's taking over social media for me tonight, Jemson Yumiko Bollosas. So, before we jump right into questions, let's please sit back and enjoy a short video showcasing the work of our featured artists.
I was supposed to be in Paris and I didn't go, and I went to a friend's New Year's Eve party and there was a girl there. She's got eyes that just capture your gaze.
The light came down.
You could just sense an attraction, and for me it was pretty instant. There's going down the friend route and there's going down the route of longevity.
And that was it really. That was the beginning of us.
It's nice to be around somebody that you can just be yourself around.
I don't want to be
your friend.
Late in the evening, can't hide it, don't wanna fight it, I'm out of my head, don't wanna pressure, live for the pleasure.
Yay, that's so cool. You guys are awesome. I'm so nervous. All right, let's jump into questions. First off, this is for both of you guys. Tell us how you started in your respective artistic fields. Whoever wants to go first.
Yeah, I can go. The question was, how do I start off? Yeah, so I initially, so I didn't even do anything to do with film. I went to LVA for choir,
Wow.
Las Vegas Academy. And then I was maybe gonna do jazz singing at UNLV because I auditioned and got a little scholarship. And then I was like, I am terrified of singing in front of people. I'm probably not gonna do that. Why are you gonna do that? And then I sort of narrowed it down between either becoming a theater major or a film major, and I chose theater first, and then I switched halfway through my first semester of being a theater major. And at the end of that first semester, I got feedback in an acting class, and they were like, "You're really good, you're just really quiet." I was like, "I'm gonna go to film because they've got mics." And that's how I became a film major. And then I didn't even edit anything until like near the end of when I was doing my undergrad. Yeah, just by chance, I ended up like directing a short film that was animated. So I didn't even shoot anything either. I didn't have a production. I was emailing these animators who were from the UK, and I ended up adding sounds to that. And I think that was the first thing that I edited, and just did a couple odd things here and there, and then decided like, oh, I think I might like this. So I guess maybe I'll continue living in the UK and try to do a master's here in it. And that's what I did. And now I'm here and I'm still in the UK.
Yeah, look at you now.
Yeah.
What a journey.
Honestly, what a journey.
Sonia, do you want to tell us your little journey too?
That's so cool, Lex. Like, that's so cool. First of all, I'm like, I love traveling. So the fact that you like just did that and that's so cool. Yeah, so I actually feel like I developed all of my talents after I graduated college. So I did one of those weird things where like you do all of the typical things your parents want you to do, get a degree, all that. And then afterward, I realized that I had like a longing to be in art. And so I just started, I had a bucket list item of things I wanted to do before I died. And one of them was like play the guitar. The other one was to travel. And the other one was, I think, like learning film photography. Because in my childhood, just a lot of cameras came in my life, but I didn't know how to use them. So I think that's how it came out. Like after I graduated, I was like, okay, I'm gonna take this like really long traveling gap year, figure out my life. And that's kind of what I did. I traveled and then I picked up the guitar and I just started writing random songs on first the ukulele, and then I transitioned into the guitar just for my friends who were away, because that was like my gift to them. Like, oh, you can't see me, but I'll write you like a song on Facebook. Like, and then when I came back from that year, my friends were like, you should perform in front of people. And I was, it's really different to be on screen and then be in front of people. So I took like a shot of something. I don't drink, so that was my thing of like, yay, just get me out into the world and I'm gonna play at this open mic. And I would say that that's how it started. Like the first time I performed, I failed miserably. It was so horrible. I forgot all my lyrics. It was filmed on TV. Nobody told me it was filmed on TV. So somewhere in the deep, dark edges of the YouTube universe, there's a performance.
I don't have a link to that. You're just trying to keep away from everyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And content.
And anyway, I failed so bad that I told myself, you can't get any worse than that. And I was also really mad at myself for just failing so bad, like at that type of skill. It was like 3 a.m. TV. So who's going to be watching that? But at the same time, it felt so bad to fail miserably like that I told myself to go back every week to get better. And that's how I got kind of like over my stage fright, because I basically had stage fright. And it went from there. Like people enjoyed what I wrote and sang. And that was weird because I always thought my voice sucked.
It's so weird to hear you say you have a wonderful voice.
I mean, it wasn't like that before. I really was very squirrely, very squirrely. It was very high pitched. So we did a lot of work. And then photography at these open mics, I would volunteer as a photographer to take other photos of the musicians who needed it. So that's kind of in those years, I was doing both at the same time and they worked really well. And that's how I grew. Yeah.
If speaking of like, it seems like both of you came really far from how you started out and like, you know, your respective like mediums. If you could give your past self, like say 10 years ago, tell your however long ago, whatever age you were self, what some advice, what would it be?
I mean, you were just talking about failing just so badly that my whole thing is like, just don't be afraid to fail. And I think when I've had to speak to like just slightly younger people, I don't want to act like I'm old or anything like that. It's fine. We're all young here. Yeah, I feel like the whole thing is like, you know, the first thing that you're going to make, whatever it is just going to be bad. So you just have to get over that and keep doing it. But can I ask, how many times did you perform until you stopped getting stage fright? Because I just need to know, because I still have it. I don't like
well, I will say that was like from the years of 2013. I still get afraid to get on, but I'm not as bad anymore. So I would say from 2013, actually up until the pandemic, like it was 2013 to 20, when did the pandemic happen? 2019. I think those 2 years of not having performed it removed, I don't know what it was, but physically all the anxiety that I had about performing went away because there was just so much darker stuff happening that the comparison of stage fright now to what I felt in the pandemic means nothing now. So it took a while. So 2013 to 2019 is how many years? I don't know. I was always afraid. Kind of still am, but I don't know. Pandemic is that hard shell. It puts the hard shell, and you can do it all now. If you survive the pandemic, you can do anything, guys.
Literally. I was like watching a video today where somebody got the year 2020 tattooed on their body, and this person was like, why would you do that? That was like the worst year ever. So if like you made it this far, like keep going, right?
Yeah.
So that makes sense. We touched upon like traveling and all that, and your guys is talking about your journey. And just so like our audience is aware, Sonia, you live and are based in Vegas, correct?
Yes.
And then Lex lives all the way over in London. My next question is like, how does where you live affect your art and career? Does it affect it at all? Or do you think no matter where you are, it's more or less the same?
I think it I think it definitely does, even if you don't think it does. I thought that I hated Vegas when I was living there. Like I grew up in Vegas. I moved away when I was 20. I moved to the UK, and the entire time I was like, Vegas sucks. I'm gonna move out as soon as I can. And then I did, and then all I did was talk about Vegas and how I'm from Vegas. And that's when I started drawing. So I started illustrating not long after I moved here. And I was trying to like figure out my style. And I think the Vegas part of me comes through because the palettes that I tend to choose are very like beige and deserty, and it's there, and like Vegas is so colorful, and I think I brought that part of it to London with me. Also, yeah, I don't know, like if you ever come to London, everyone just wears black. It's just so uniform, and everyone's being so cool, and they're like, oh, I wear all black, and I've got tattoos in secret places that you won't see. And it's just like, everyone is too cool here. And then when you go, like I went to Vegas 2 weeks ago, and I just came back yesterday. I went to like Vegas and then Hawaii, because that's like, went to go and visit family. And it was so much more colorful, and everyone's so much like, there's just so much more vibe. Maybe it's the sunshine. I think that's what it is. But yeah, no, the Vegas part of me definitely comes through in everything that I do. Even if I guess maybe I used to think that it wouldn't, or like if you try to hide parts of yourself, it's not going to work. It's going to happen. It's going to come out.
I love that. I love that you love Vegas now. Like, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. As a person from Vegas, I'm like, that warms my heart.
Also, sorry. I'm also
Yeah.
from Las Vegas, by the way. I saw that in your bio and I was like, wait, what? And then I think you mentioned Broadacres, and that's where I went when I went back to Vegas.
Well,
Like, because you talk about, I'm so sorry, this is like just diverting from the question, but you mentioned work, like going to Broadacres with your mom. I used to go to Broadacres with my parents every, I think, Sunday morning when I was a kid. And we just like, me and my little sister would get pulled around in a little wagon, and that's what we would do with our weekend mornings.
yes. yes. That's the essential, I think, like true local Vegas thing to go do is just the biggest outdoor swap meet is in North Las Vegas. I actually used to work there, so I did a little bit of child labor with my mom. So we had a little stand there, and then that kept me out of trouble because like that area that we were living in is not, it's like it's a lot of gang affiliation and like middle school I went to there, it was wild. So I think going there every weekend, it was like, yeah, just eat the coconuts, sell some stuff, learn about capitalism. So yeah, that's so cool that you went to Broadacres. That also warms my heart.
You have to.
Not the question. What was the question?
Do you think, since you've been different places, do you feel like being in Vegas has that affected your career? Do you feel like it would be the same if you moved somewhere else?
Okay. Yeah, I love Las Vegas. I think because of I've traveled throughout the years and I've seen other cities and felt how they feel. And sometimes, yeah, there's like a vibe of like, it's too cool or something like that. Or I got a chance to live in India, and that was a totally different experience of like, I became so grateful for Vegas because of just everything, America in general. You know, we have toilets and we have like all the basic necessities and food at our just like table, and Vegas is 24/7. I grew up here, my whole family's here, so everything that I love is here, and it's good to go to somewhere else and feel how the culture is and how they do art. Not to say that it's like other parts of the world are amazing, they're full of culture and full of just like vibrance, but there is something about where your heart is, you know, and my heart is here. So even if I were to travel or say tour elsewhere, I feel like my heart is always pulled here, and I always want to represent this town that molded who I am, because it gave me so much. It gave me so much, and I just want to give so much back. That's how I feel about it. I love Las Vegas. Even though other people may think we're crazy and think we live in casinos, like, no, we don't live in casinos. Like,
the amount of times you get asked that wherever you go, like, yes, there's houses there, right, there's schools there, right. No, like, I feel like I can relate a lot to both of you guys, because like Lex, I was like, I cannot wait to leave here. And then I moved to LA, and then it feels like half my personality, especially when I'm meeting new people, is like being from Vegas, you know. So I feel like no matter where you're from, where you're at, whether you stayed home or left, like home's always kind of there, you know. All my friends and family are in Vegas, so it's like you can never really leave you. So
right, I agree.
For my next question, since the time is passing by so much faster than I thought it would, but
we're having so much fun.
I know, we're having so much fun. I just want to, in case people aren't aware, our audience, all of us are women of color, obviously, and we're all Filipino, right? And as POC, do you feel like that label or identity has had a huge influence on you in your work in art? I know a lot of people like to say, like, I'm not my race, I'm not my skin, you know what I mean? But like, but does it really? Like, let's talk about this. For you, has it affected you and had an influence on what you make and where you work?
Yeah, it's something that I've been trying to figure out how to navigate, I think, just because, like, you know, you always get asked like, oh, what's your favorite movie? You're in film, like, what do you love? And I'm like, oh, these things. And all the things that I tend to list are coming of age films or TV shows or something. And I was like, okay, but I don't have anybody, like when I was growing up, I was like, I don't have anybody on TV that looks like me or has the same upbringing that I've had. I'm like, okay, well, I guess the only option is to make something like that. So the thing that I've been trying to figure out how to make is to just make something with people that look like me in it. That's the only way. But yeah, some things have come out in the past few years that I'm like, oh, actually, I really identify with it. Or there are parts of it that I'm like, oh, this really touches my heart in some ways, and then trying to figure out why that is. Me and my sister separately in completely separate places watched like Moana, and she was like, I wanted to cry throughout the whole film. And I'm like, me too, and I don't know why. We just spent a whole call just talking to each other about like why we're not, yeah, what does that have to do with how we feel right now? And things like, yeah, The Farewell, and like Aquafina being of Chinese heritage, but growing up in New York. And it's like, okay, well, that's something that I can kind of identify with. There's something along the lines of that. That's something that I've been trying to figure out how to explore. I'd love to do something in Vegas. So that's my secret project that I will eventually one day write somehow.
I mean, I'm down to help you out with that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. When you come to Vegas, just let me know. I would say I love being Filipino. So I'm half Filipino and half Indian. I grew up with my Filipino mom. So that, man, all the food, the culture, just like I think we connect over our the childhood trauma with the moms.
Definitely.
I think it's like, you gotta laugh, because if you didn't have a Filipino mom, it's like, if you talk about this to any other person who's not Filipino, like, I don't think they would laugh, but it's a very specific Filipino, you know, childhood upbringing. And it's so funny because it's ridiculous. And I think that really informed who I am. You know, my mom is one of my biggest influences. Like, I try to go throughout my life and be like, no, my mom, I don't know, my mom's crazy. She's, you know, she can't organize herself, whatever. But truly, like, I have such a appreciation and respect for her for making the decision to go from her home country and to live elsewhere and to raise a family. So I do think of those things. I feel very privileged. And that's one of the things that keeps me going as an artist, because I'm like, yo, my mom like came here. I can't just like sit around and be lazy, you know, and do nothing or whatever. So yeah, it influences in my music, because I write about that. Like, I've written songs about her and her experience, which makes me think I'll probably sing that particular song that I wrote about my mom. And then I really, the Indian side of me, you know, like, when those two mash, they're just such different cultures. I just feel very, I don't know, grateful, just very grateful to be here and to be American. We have a lot going on that other countries don't. So I just want to give back. That's always what it is. Like, Filipinos give so much. We're just so service oriented. Like, yo, it's time for us to shine, you know? Let's like Joe Coy that shit, you know?
No, it is like interesting, because I feel like growing up in America and seeing not a lot of people that look like you in media, at least for me, for a long time, I didn't like, not that I didn't notice, but it wasn't something that I realized was affecting me, you know, like, I didn't realize that, you know, not wanting to not like hate my nose, or like wanting to be blonde, or like, you know, wanting to have a last name that people couldn't figure out how to pronounce. Like, I didn't realize like that sort of stuff was affecting me and had some influence over me because of what I saw in media, you know, in film and TV. And now that, you know, I remember watching this interview with like Stephen Yun, and him saying that like the reason so many like Asian creatives slash creators are doing really well, like on the internet, on like social media and stuff, versus like what you see in movies and TV, is because, you know, in that sense, we're able to control like what we put out there. Like we're not waiting for other people to give us material to work with. And I hope that change. It seems like that's changing in Hollywood now, you know, more people who are people of color or different descent are working behind the camera so that you can see us in front of the camera. I think that's really, really cool, and actually kind of transitions us to our next questions. I'm going to be going into individual questions now. And this one is, I wrote it for Lex, but it does have a lot to do with what we're talking about right now. Lex, let's talk about your journal that you submitted to us on the Eccentric Artists website. If anybody watching can go ahead and read it right now. It's called "Do You Get Where I'm Coming From?" And the topic of the age-old question, where are you from? Lex, if you want to give the audience a little bit summary of what you wrote about, what it means to you.
I haven't actually read back what I wrote, because I think at the time it was just something that was on my mind a lot. And I feel like maybe now if I read it back, it might sound a bit like a rant.
Those are the best kinds of journals, don't worry.
Yeah, well, I was like, oh, I don't really know what to write about. This has been on my mind. I'm just going to write it out. So basically, it was just me talking about, well, I think, okay, the reason why I decided to write it was because you're like, oh, would you like to come and do this Q&A for Eccentric Artists? And I was like, yeah, cool. And then it's like, oh, well, come up with a short bio, or come up with a thing that will explain to everybody who you are as a person. And I'm like, how do I do this in a paragraph? Or just thoughts along those lines. And yeah, just, I think when I was working, I used to work at a shop before I started working in film, and every single day I was just working in like a clothing shop, and I worked at a shoe shop, and every single day I'd get, oh, where are you from? And I think especially here, because I have an accent, I'm American, it's like, okay, yeah, no, I'm from Vegas. And then they'd be like, oh no, but where are you from?
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, where am I from? Why are you asking me this? You're just trying to buy some trainers. Like, and it becomes this whole conversation about, like, I started saying things like, oh yeah, I'm from Vegas. And they're like, no, but what's your heritage? And it's like, that's a big question to just ask a stranger. Mm-hmm. And I kept finding that it kept happening. And it just made me, I just started questioning, like, where am I from? I don't know. Because I think especially when you move somewhere, the sort of the lack of a physical home, because you haven't made it yet in a different place, places a lot more importance on where your home used to be. And then when people are like, that's not your home is somewhere else. And I didn't grow up in the Philippines. Like, both of my parents are Filipino, my stepdad's Black, and I've grown up in Vegas. And it's just like, oh, my upbringing is also just like a mixture of different cultures coming together. And ultimately, when I tell people in America that I'm from America, they're like, no, you're not. And then when I tell people from the UK that I'm from America, they're like, no, you're not. And then when I go to the Philippines, they're like, you don't speak Tagalog. And I'm like, but what do you want from me? Like, yeah. So it was just me trying to eloquently explain my feelings about this topic. I don't know if I did very well, but yeah, it's just a question that comes up. And I think the more I got asked the question, the more I panicked a little bit and tried to figure out who exactly that is. So now it's just like, oh, fun fact, everyone, it's not a fact, fun bit of information is that everyone can be from absolutely anywhere. Yeah. And it can be a mixture of things, and that's fine. It's fine.
No, like I'm very glad you wrote it, and you did very well explaining your point, because I feel like that was kind of something that kind of happened to me in Vegas. Like, you get I didn't really go to many places growing up, but you get that question like kind of wherever you go, right? But I do remember getting it all the time when I studied abroad in London, and it was just like, where are you from? And then you'd say America, and they're like, no, that's not what I mean. That's like exactly my experience. So that, I don't know if that's ever going to change anytime soon. I feel like we all have to kind of everybody has to kind of figure out what race and culture and, like, ethnicity and all that, how that fits into our lives, and why it's even like that important, because it can be a loaded question. when you're kind of from all over and, or you're mixed, it's like, I don't know what to tell you right now. I don't know what to say. But that, I feel like you did, again, a very good job of explaining it. So anybody who's watching, please go and read it on our journal. But also, speaking of our journal, our other featured artist here also wrote a journal for Eccentric Artists. First of all, I love when you guys write. Like, anytime anybody submits a journal, it's like, I love reading them and talking about them. So Sonia, let's talk about yours. It's a little snippet of your time at, is it your first Friday that you went to since the pandemic?
Yeah, that was
Yes.
March. That's
Yes.
fairly recent. That was in March. Yeah. Yeah, I did. When you asked about like a journal, because it was optional, I was wondering whether I should even submit something. Yeah. Because like Lex, there was just, it's like you write when whatever you're feeling, I feel like, especially in a journal. So at that time, I was using my camera a lot to get out of the house because honestly, I just have to admit that I was depressed. I'd never been through depression before. And the way that it came out was strange. I experienced all of the negative emotions in a bigger wave. I think that we all experience negative emotion, but because I couldn't express myself, like music is such a form of my release that if like 2 years of not having that release of performing for others, that's like my service and my release. It's every person has their thing, right? But I realized very quickly that this is something in my life that it cannot be taken away. Like I can't stop it, or else I turn into really depressed person, or it can turn into anxiety and anger. So I had been in the house for a really long time. I wasn't really speaking to any of my friends. There was just a lot had happened with family members and all this stuff, and pandemic vibes. That's what it was. So I just told myself, like, I need to get out the house. And then I looked at my camera, which was just like, it looked at me. That's how I felt. It looked at me and it said, get out the house. And so I grabbed it and I just told myself every day I'm going to go out the house with my camera and I'm going to see outside, because that's what it was. It was like I was in my head so much that I told myself, like, I need to get out of my head. So the camera is a perfect way to do that, because you have to observe, like you have to see outside of yourself, or else you're going to miss the moment. You're going to miss people. You're going to miss the thing, like just life in general. So I just started going out every day. And then this March 1st Friday came up and I was like, whoa, like, are we back? Like, are we back? Like the masks are off and this feels strange. But like people are going around and mingling and they're close, because it was still like, are we doing 6 feet? Like, so it's so strange to say that was this year, So that journal entry was me experiencing what it felt like to be quenched out of such like a period of what felt like a dry desert, or just a dry spell of nothing of my passion. I had no passion. I had nothing. And then suddenly I see the world full of passion. It felt like night and day. So that journal entry, I'm thankful for you for asking for that, because it's a moment in time where I'm like, I'm glad it's recorded, just because I distinctly remember the moments on that day. I'm like, oh my God, smells, smelling, hearing. It's like all my senses just came on, and I was like, oh my God, this is what I've been missing in life. So that's what that journal entry was about. It's from that feeling of having been away and then almost being like reconnected to home, in a sense.
Yeah. Oh, I think it's interesting, because I feel like we all remember this, when lockdown felt like it wasn't going to end anytime soon and the pandemic was going to end anytime soon. Everyone was like picking up new hobbies, and finding new ways to, like, express themselves. And I feel like part of us like we're in denial, like, you know,
Yeah.
even as something as simple as going to the movie theater, going to a concert, hanging out with your friends and not having to be like, are you vaccinated? Can you wear a mask, please? Like, you know what I mean? Like that sort of stuff is like, it's very jarring when we're back to normalcy and you're just like, should I be wearing a mask right now? I don't know. No one else is. I'm gonna look dumb if I wear one, but should I care if I look dumb? Like, this isn't about that. But, you know, I very much enjoyed it because it was like, it made me think about the first time I was in a crowd again, you know, like post pandemic. I say quotes because I don't know. But yeah, it's like, it was so visceral. Like I felt like I was there downtown with you, smelling smelling all the food and the smoke and like seeing all the people. But yeah, thank you for sharing that. Thank you guys both for writing to our journal. Again, anyone in the audience, please check it out. It's both entries are such a delight to read. All right, cool. So let me go on to our next question. And since I'm hopping back and forth between you, Lex, it's your turn again. Let's talk about your work as an editor. I kind of have like, this is kind of like this might be a loaded question, but why did you choose to edit as your main position in filmmaking?
Yeah.
How did you fall into that?
I did just fall into it. I feel like when I have conversations with people in creative industries, I'm like, how did you get into it? It's so cool. You're so cool. They're like, yeah, I just fell into it. You don't just fall into it. You had to try at some point to just be like, I'm going to try a new thing today and see if it works for you. When I did my undergrad, I did film production at UNLV, and I mostly focused on acting because I'd done the little jump from being a theater major to film. So I was like, keep trying acting, keep doing that. I'm quite organized, so I also tried producing as well, and those were the two things that I focused on. And I think the idea of editing scared me a little bit because I didn't know how to use any of the software. I'm not a very computer savvy person or like tech savvy, and I kept away from that. I think, Sonia, you mentioned like cameras were always in my life, but I didn't know how to use them. And I think that's the same thing for me, but with like just technology in general. Mm-hmm. And so I ended up working for the Las Vegas Film Festival, but I also got asked to be a director for the Young Cinema Lab. So that's where they pair you with a kid, and in this case, I got paired with two little girls, and I had to just make a short film based off of a script that they wrote. And when it came time to coming up with an idea to write, I was like, what do you guys like? Just as a prompt. And they were like, we like dogs. And I was like, I love dogs too. We wrote a script about dogs, and I was like, how am I going to make dogs talk? How do I do this in a month? And I ended up finding animators, but I ended up putting the sounds together for it. And I ended up getting my friends to do the voices of the dogs. And I added in like sound effects from a free sound library online. And that was my first bit of editing that I'd ever done. Yeah. I loved it. And I just threw myself into it and didn't touch editing again for another maybe like year or so. And one of my friends asked me to just edit a few clips together for like a behind the scenes thing that they were doing. So I did that, and I really enjoyed it. And I think that's when I was like, maybe I should try this little editing thing out and give it a go. Had a little look at master's programs because I was living in London at that point. And I was like, I do really want to keep living here. I don't know how I'm going to do that because visas and stuff. And I just ended up applying to it. And I remember speaking to the editing professor at Goldsmiths, which is where I went. And I went to just chat to him. And I was like, I don't know a thing about editing software. I can kind of use Final Cut Pro. And that's about, like, I can kind of use it. I've watched a couple YouTube videos about how to do it. Mm-hmm. And he was like, you know what? You have something there. If you're willing to just put in the work hard and just throw yourself into it, great. And I was like, okay, cool. And that's how I did it. And they can teach you. If you don't know how to do things, people can teach you how to do them. But as long as you want to do it, then just go for it.
Yeah, you got to ask, right? Sometimes it's like, oh, I want to do this stuff and people are too scared to, but congrats on the initiative because look where you are now.
Thank you.
For Sonia, my next question's for you. talking about like the process of stuff. And this is coming from somebody who like played an instrument in like middle school and then never really drew on it past that. I want to talk to you about the process of songwriting. Like, where do you start? Like, how do you build from there? Do you start with your lyrics? Do you start with like a melody? Like, tell us about that.
Okay. Well, first off, I think that learning is a lifelong process. So you're never done, and you can always pick up the guitar and get better. Just saying. I would love to see that from you. Anyway, songwriting. So it's all about emotion for me. I think when I feel an emotion intensely, well, I'll just put this into like a context that because it's such a like a fluffy thing to me that to say it in words kind of it would remove it. Like when you meet somebody and you feel an automatic connection, right? And you're just like, whoa, that's like a big emotion there. And then you think about it, you dwell on it. You're like, oh, wow, like that felt whoa, you know, or whatever it felt to you. So I feel like songwriting is capturing that feeling or whatever it is in a bottle and putting it in a song. That's what I would say. And I often put myself, you kind of have to, like the creative process, it could be filmmaking, it could be anything. I think you do have to be in a certain mood. You have to be in a certain frame of thought. Like I can't write a song when I'm like anxious or fearful. I can kind of write one when I'm angry because at least I'm like, I just want to get it out. Yeah. But I would say like when I have a big emotion, and it could be sadness, it could be love, it could be something intellectual that I think of that brings me emotion. I want to find the chords. So I find the chords then. This is not always the way that it goes down, but like I would say like generally I'm like, okay, this is the emotion I have. And then I start to fiddle with the guitar and I see what sounds come out of it. And then I see the chords, or I don't see them, I hear them and I go, okay, that's how I feel about this. You know, because certain chords, they sound more romantic than other ones, I would say. Like rock and roll has a lot of these power chords that are like, and then, you know, if you want to fall in love, then sometimes you go into like the jazz chords that are lighter, and R&B is based on those types of chord structures and all that. So I think you have to have a little bit of the chord knowledge. I don't have very much. I don't know what the name of the chords I'm playing are, but because I know shapes, you know, you can follow shapes on the guitar pretty well. And then you can move them all along the neck and you can find out, oh, this is what I want to say. And then words come out. Then it's like, oh, I love the way that your eyes blink at me. I don't know. Or just, you know, try, like, it's almost like if you want to write a love song, what would you say to the person that you know, how would you woo them? So that's when I think words come out, because I can imagine speaking to someone, or I can imagine speaking to my past self. So all these things, I think it's different for each person, different each time, but it's all about emotion. How do you capture that emotion? Even with film, like you decide to put different colors, you know, when you film something. So it's kind of the same way with guitar chords. Like, what colors do you want to use?
Yeah, when you put it that way, that makes it a lot easier for me to understand, because growing up, I was always like, how the heck does a song work? Like, where does that noise come from? But, you know, when you put it that way, it does make a lot of sense, and more, what is that word? More plausible, and at least in my mind, how a song starts. I will say right now, guys, I cannot believe what time it is, but it's already 7:45. So I'm going to ask you guys one last question, and that is, what's next? Tell us about your future plans, where people can find any of your newest work, how they can see that stuff.
Okay. Do you want to go? I can go. Right. So Once Familiar it's a short experimental thriller film, and it's not available online. because it was doing its festival run. So it was like, no, you can only watch it if you go to these fancy film festivals. That should be finishing up soon. So I would imagine that would be put online. I need to talk to my producers. We'll don't have any, I don't know why I even mentioned it. You can't watch it anywhere. Yeah.
But we hope soon.
Yeah, soon at a nondescript time in the future. Yeah, I'm editing a short film called Nell and Pauline, and that's going to be out. We're also going to enter that into festivals at some point, so you can't watch that either, but I'm editing it. And then I'm editing a romantic comedy short film called Seeing Red with one of my old flatmates, Beth, and her sister Natasha Perkins. So that's a fun one that's going to be coming out. And I've got some more short films that I will be editing, but haven't locked in yet because life is very busy. Yep. So yeah, just going to be editing short films and then also trying to make money somehow as a second assistant editor. No links in my bio.
Links soon.
Watch this space.
Nice. I feel in the similar, trying to live life and make money. Did my first commercial acting ever in my life. I don't know. It was, sure. So, like Lex said, things kind of fall. You just kind of fall into things sometimes. You just got to trust it. But yeah, things coming out. I love film and I love making music videos. That's kind of how so I actually went to school for film as well, but I learned nothing. I just watched a bunch of movies. And then I was like, okay, when am I going to do that? Now I have this repertoire in my subconscious of amazing, beautiful films. So I guess it comes out of my music videos. So the next things for me is just, I love doing that. I love collaborating with people, having a very fun experience, having an idea that you think about, and then everybody's like, that's dope. Like, let's do that. Like, that's where I want to go. I want to be like, okay, formation of the baby. Now let's like materialize it. So I have a few songs coming out, possibly an EP, and for each of those, like if I release them as singles, I want to have music videos for. And I'm really goofy, so I just want to keep on doing goofy like music videos. I just released an Alien music video, so that was fun. That was really goofy. I just want to do more of that because there's a serious side to me in the song itself, like if you listen to the music maybe, but then the goofy side comes out in the visuals because I really want to show that side of myself. So you'll just see more of that from me. Music videos, more songs. I don't know when I'll be announcing those things. Like life is happening really quickly. But I feel like there's a lot of creative things happening. So you'll see releases. You'll see them.
Lots of things over the horizon.
Oh, and I think also I'll illustrate some sort of Valentine's card that's going to say, I love the way that you blink at me. And it
awesome.
I love that.
Lex, get ready.
I'll be the first.
I'm ready
customer.
Already.
Yeah,
exactly.
Just start a merch line.
No, I'm going to be your only customer because I'm going to take all of them.
Excellent. That's fine with me.
No, you have to leave some for me, at least. I was there too.
I really want that. I actually want that to materialize in life.
I'm going to make it happen.
Please, Lex.
Make it happen.
Please.
Make it happen. All right. Thank you, guys. That concludes all of the board's questions. So before we transition over to audience questions, we do have a special treat tonight. Sonia will be performing a song for us, and we're super stoked. Like, this is the first time we've ever had a performance on here on this live stream. While Sonia is getting ready, anybody during her performance, if you still have a question you want to ask, feel free to leave those in the chat, and our moderator is going to be behind the scenes and gather those now. And as we get ready for Sonia's performance, Lex and I will hide ourselves. And whenever you're ready, Sonia.
Yeah, you have to hide yourself.
I'm gonna shout my tech moderator out right now. This is what she wants. She said, hide yourself. And so she's the boss. I'm gonna listen to her. And as we do that, Sonia, tell us, a bit about the song, the title, and then go ahead from there. And then I'll be right back.
Y'all are adorable. Okay. Yes. So, I was gonna do a song called Indian Girl, and I wrote that one about my mom. But I actually think the way that we're leaving off on like being passionate about what you want to do, or if you have something, it could be just like knitting, or it could be collecting buttons. I don't know. You could be the best button collector. I just think that you should just go do whatever you want to do. So this song is called Whatever, and this is what I'm gonna play. Yeah. It's been so long since you let yourself go. Do whatever you want. Do whatever you wanna do now. Whatever you want, just do. Whatever you want, just do. Whatever you want, just do it, do it, do it. It's been so long since you let your head down. Do whatever you want. Go wherever you wanna go now. Whatever you want, just do. Whatever you want, just do. Whatever you want, just do it, do it, do it. Do whatever you want. Go wherever you want. It's been so long since you let yourself go. Do whatever you want. No, you are never alone, never alone. Whatever you want, just do. Whatever you want, just do. Whatever you want, just do it, do it, do it. Whatever you want. Whatever you want. Whatever you want, just do it, do it, do it. Whatever you want, just do. Whatever you want, just do. Whatever you want, just do it, do it, do it.
That was amazing. Thank you, Sonia, for performing for
Thank
us. Oh
you.
my gosh, you didn't see because we had to hide ourselves, but I was like singing along, bopping back here. Tiffany is like singing over there too. Amazing music, I have to say. When you first said like, oh, I was gonna do Indian Girl, I was like, darn it, I love Indian Girl, but obviously Whatever is such an amazing song too. Clearly everyone can see, but
Appreciate y'all.
thank you so much.
for doing what you do. This is really cool and inspiring and great to connect with awesome people. So thank you.
Thank you for being an awesome person who's connecting with us. All right, cool, guys. All right, I guess we'll transition into audience questions whenever you guys are ready. Our first one is from Ozzy. He says, You both are well-accomplished artists, and I'm curious to ask if you ever have felt imposter syndrome. If so, how did you overcome it?
Ooh, jokes on everyone because I still got it. Yeah, just have to keep doing what you're doing. I've also asked people that I'm like, oh wow, you've made it. How do you get over your fears of imposter syndrome? And they're like, we still have it too. So it's just a tough, it's just a tough thing that you have to come to terms with potentially. Although if anyone else has figured out how to get over it, then please let me know because
Yes, please tell us.
yeah, literally I will say that before we started, I was talking about needing to shit myself because I was very nervous. I won't speak on behalf of others, but I was
you can say that I also was shitting
no, we were all
myself.
gonna shit ourselves. So yeah, it's yeah. I have no inspiring words for this. You just have to keep doing what you're doing because you love doing it. So as long as you love what you're doing, just have to take a deep breath and just keep doing it because the imposter syndrome might just keep coming.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I would say that not believing, I've always had this thing of like not believing in myself as much as other people seem to believe in me. And it's like really strange because they are in disbelief that we couldn't believe in ourselves the way that they do. Maybe that's a part of being an artist, right? It's just accepting that we will probably not believe in ourselves as much as other people do. But as long as we keep on going, I feel physically in my body that I get better with my own stage anxiety or whatever it is, performance. Like I feel like the more you do it, the better you get. And then you start to go like, yeah, I think I believe in myself. Yeah.
Yeah, fake it till you make it, right? And I feel like half of it is also like overthinking it. It's like, okay, come on, this is just art. I'm just having fun. You kind of gotta bring yourself down from that. But I feel like, it speaks to the person that if you are introspective enough to be like, am I, like what is going on? It's not always a bad thing. Thank you, Ozzy, for that question. We do have another audience question for both of you guys, and this is also going to be, I think, very helpful for me. What's the most helpful piece of advice you've gotten throughout your career/lives? The inspiring quotes from other people.
I took a cinematography class at UNLV with David Waldman, and he had this thing. Yeah, he had this saying, and that his saying was "Be nimble, be humble." And when he said that, I was like, "Ooh, that's very good." It's also very concise. So it's like you're not going to forget it. But I have sort of kept that in the back of my mind this entire time since he said it. It's just like, no matter what you're doing, be flexible with what you're doing, and also remember where you've come from, and remember how much you've worked up to get to where you're at, and how much further you also need to go. So, yeah, I think especially in creative industries, you might come across lots of people that, again, just the thing about like being London, everyone's so cool, and it's like, remember where you came from, remember what you're doing, and just instill that in yourself, and just baseline, be a nice person and enjoy what you do.
Yeah, that is an awesome piece of advice. I will take that. Thank you.
Thank you,
Waldman. Okay. I would say, there's so much that people say throughout your life that resonates at that certain time. So I guess the one right now is, it's like that life thing. It's like, you never know when you're going to live tomorrow. Like, you don't even know if you're going to see tomorrow. So I think that thought in my mind of just appreciating the day as it is and not thinking so far ahead or like getting lost in my thoughts in the past. Like, I think that helps me a lot to realize that there's so much to see, there's so much to do and create. Like, this is such a cool thing to me right now that I'm talking to somebody who's across the freaking ocean, and then like, I think this is amazing. So just knowing that tomorrow's not promised, that keeps me in a space of like, okay, yeah, like well, just how would you want to live out your day? And then just go from there. That helps me a lot.
Well, I don't think there was a better way to wrap up our Q&A for tonight. So thank you guys for that. Some very good advice. And that wraps up our featured artist Q&A 8th edition, the second session. We're done. Oh my gosh.
Nobody shit themselves.
Nobody that we know of. And if you have, you can keep it to yourself. Just kidding. Thank you guys for taking the time to chat with us, for being so cool and chill. That helped me a lot out as a host. So you guys are awesome.
Right back at you. Oh my God.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Thank you guys.
I love the work that you all are doing. Oh my gosh, like y'all are so, like that intro with those transitions, and I'm like, yeah, I learned about PowerPoint. This is another level. Like, what is?
Yeah, if we didn't have cool people with cool work to show, like this wouldn't be half as awesome as it is. So, we're super grateful anytime everybody's like, yeah, I'll be a featured artist and do a Q&A. I think all of us are like always kind of half surprised because they're like, oh my God, they're so cool and they're gonna talk to us. So
you all are so cool.
My board members are definitely very cool, and I'm just riding their coattails. But thank you guys. Thank you to our audience. If you guys want to check these guys out more, make sure you visit our website, and on their profiles you can find all their websites and their socials on eccentricartist.space. Make sure you follow them and keep up with their work. They say they have stuff on the horizon, so you want to keep up, you got to follow them. Before we go, we'd like to briefly go over some of our future events. If you haven't heard, Eccentric Artists is collaborating with the Nevada Women's Film Festival again, and we've been really busy preparing for that opening day next month. The festival starts June 23rd and goes till the 26th. So if you're interested in attending, make sure you go to Nevada Women's Film Festival's website, which is nwwffest.com. That was a mouthful of letters, but yeah, you guys go ahead. We're really busy with that. So we're really excited. Thank you, Nevada Women's Film Festival, for having us again. And also, we want to give a shout out to everyone who's been helping out with Eccentric Artists' documentary. We appreciate you guys so much, and we've had a blast collaborating and filming that with everyone helping us out. Keep up to date on our film's journey by checking out our Doc Diaries posts on Instagram. And then I know I've done this a million times, but thank you, Lex. Thank you, Sonia, for joining us.
Thank you so much.
You guys made it so easy to just chill and talk. Thank you, Lex, for joining us. Even though it's probably like 4 a.m. in the UK right now.
Talk about it. It's fine.
Thank you. Look, we're just grateful.
It was my own fault. No, literally my own fault. No, I'm so happy to be here. So happy to be here.
We're happy to have you. Thank you, Sonia, for joining us too. I don't think any of us in this chat are in like the same state, so that's really cool. I think that's a first. Wow. So that's super awesome. And then everybody watching us, thank you all again. That's all for now, and have a good night. We'll see you at the next one. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Go to sleep.
I've had a whole cup of coffee. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I had some cold brew right before this because I was like,